Welcome aboard, friends. You're watching Linus Napoleonic Shipyard, and today we bring you a single ship action using our house rules. These house rules are based off the Black Seas rule set by Wallard Games. Really recommend that. And it's set in the Caribbean. It's a fictional duel between two very interesting frigates, the HMS Endymion of the Royal Navy and the Spanish ship or frigate named Preba. There's many Prebas, but this Preba is particularly interesting. Very large Spanish frigate. Both are hopefully well modeled and historically fascinating. Brought to life on the tabletop by me and my friend Marcus. Let's start with a British ship, HMS Endymion. She was launched in 1797 and was based on a captured French design. She was one of the fastest sailing frigates of the Napoleonic Wars, capable of over 40 knots, and famously engaged and captured the American USS President in 1815. That's during the War of 1812 between the UK and the United States. In our rules, she is modeled as a high-speed, high-offense, but lightly built ship. So there is this talk historically that she was pretty lightly built. I haven't really found any real historical evidence of that. If I'm wrong, correct me. But anyway, we decided for the rules to run her like that, like a glass cannon type of a ship. So we only gave her 32 ship points, which is less than a normal fifth rate using the Black Seas rules, but a blistering 7-inch speed. So her rate of knots is 7 inches, and that's very fast. That would bring her even faster than a streamlined hull with our house rules. With our house rules, that gives a +1 inch instead of just a +1 on one of the movements, right? So super fast. We'll see how that plays out. She also has some special rules. None of them really came into play during this battle, where she can fire when she's moving very fast, fire with just -1 penalty instead of 2. That didn't come into play since the wind was pretty choppy, so none of the players really dared to set anything larger than battle sails, because otherwise he would have to test for damage. So that's the HMS Endymion, a very interesting frigate. The paintwork, I went with some historical accounts I found, with her being predominantly black with its thinner streaks. She probably had a traditional ochre band as well at some points, I'm sure, and there's also illustrations of it. But for me, I found this more interesting, and I hope you enjoy it. So facing Endymion is the Spanish Prueba, a large frigate built in Ferrol in 1797. She carried 40 guns, including a mix of 12-pounders and 8-pounders, and served throughout the height of the Revolutionary Wars and the Napoleonic Wars. She's an unusual case, a heavier than average frigate for Spain, and one of several test or experimental designs, hence the name Preba, meaning test or proof in Spanish. In our rules, she counts as a very large frigate. So our large frigate, they have 44 ship points, and then they have 3 heavy, 1 light, and 1 carronade. We also gave her the sturdy upgrade. Since she was a very large ship, we wanted to give her more ship points to kind of match the historical original. She was painted by my friend Marcus, and actually the hull is based off a Constitution model actually, but from a company named Artist Hobby. So slightly different than normal ones, and I ended up not using that hull. I used the mast and the photo edge that came with the kit, and then I gave the hull to Marcus, and he ended up doing this Spanish frigate, the Preba, and I think he did a great job with it. What we also want to display is our Streamlined single ship action setup system for battles like with Black Seas rules, basically using our house rules. But you could use this for any rules, I guess. So a single ship action is almost like out of the mist from the original rules. However, we want to add in some randomness. So first you roll a d8, all the compass directions, or actually not all of them, but simplified 8 directions. This is the direction from where the wind is blowing. In this case, we ended up rolling that it's blowing to the north, and that's to one of the short edges of the table. Also, if both players roll the same table, which could happen, since you roll the d8 there for the... And also, I forgot to say that the d8 is split. So 1, 2 is one side, 3, 4 is the next side, and then 5, 6, and then 7, 8. So it's actually it's a d4, but we use the d8 to roll. So there's those 4 sides, but if you end up on the same side, which we actually ended up doing when we rolled, then we split that side into another 3 sectors. So rolling a d3, you select different zones. You could again end up in the same zone, and if you do that, then you'll roll a d6, and whoever rolls highest on the d6 chooses if they want to go first or not. Whoever goes first, there's one rule that we keep with this, is that the ships cannot start closer than 15 inches apart. So over the 3 zones, or if you're in the same zone, you need to at least be 15 inches apart. So one player couldn't set up with the wind gauge just beside the other ship, like appearing out of nowhere. Then the battle is already on, right? So we want this to be like just at the beginning of the battle. So the closest it could be, you start from the same side and you are 15 inches apart. So as I said, in this match both ships rolled the same edge and ended up in different zones. This gave me, as the British player, the wind gauge, or the weather gauge, sorry. Since Marcus ended up in zone 1 to the northern side of the table, and I ended up in zone 2 in the middle of the table, giving me a clear weather gauge at the beginning of the battle. So let's move on to the battle report turn by turn. So turn 1, both ships began the battle at battle sails. We did this both because none of us, even if we could, actually with the wind direction, set full sails. We had rolled the roll for weather and ended up with rough seas. So this battle is played in rough seas, and that means that all the ships have -1 to hit. And then at vessels, we have it in our house rules at full sails, they take 1d3 mass damage. So each time you have full sails, you're going to take d3 mass damage, like signifying the wear on the sails. I guess the drift is also added 1 rate of knots. So if you're drifting 1 extra inch. So that's an important addition. So Endymion had the wind in her favor with the weather gauge, and she immediately opened fire on Preba with her bow chasers, and there she scored 2 points worth of damage on Preba. And this is what happened. Me as the British player, I had the weather gauge, and my main goal was not to give it up. So Marcus would gonna have to do some pretty clever maneuvering with Preba to get out of that. In turn 2, Preba decided to do a wearing maneuver, and we've changed our house rules. So doing a wearing maneuver will not require you to roll a die to test, like a skill test. You can just perform the maneuver. You're turning with the wind. You're also allowed to fire with a -1 penalty. So we're just probably eyeballing this, but we're thinking like where maneuver might not require as much crew as attacking maneuver. So it's an easier maneuver just turning with the wind in your sails, right? You're at your back. So that's how we run it. Endymion responded with another round of chaser fire, so another 2 points of damage on Preba. And yeah, steady attrition, not lots of damage. She had a lot of ship points, but since she was in a chase, then why not choose your bow chaser? Marcus, playing the Spanish captain, tried to do a lot of maneuvers, like wearing maneuvers and so on, to try to lure me as the British player in, so he could get in range with his much heavier ship, right? In a close duel, then even if Endymion would be slightly heavier armed, with her 2 coronades at close distance. She had 3 heavy guns and 2 coronades in our rows, and the Preba have 3 heavy guns, 1 light gun and 1 coronade, so slightly heavier broadside at close range for the Endymion. Still, Endymion just with 32 ship points would take a lot of damage, right? So probably this would be a good tactic. I used the maneuverability of the Endymion to try to avoid this, so staying just out of range. We're on turn 4, and again Endymion's bow chasers struck, keeping up the pressure. The weather gauge gave her a total dominance over the engagements. Preba couldn't close fast enough. It was very hard for Marcus to try and maneuver. He did some really good maneuvers, pretty clever, but it was very hard for him to just get into range. On turn 5, Preba got her chance. So she finally got to fire her initial broadside. And we're using the rule for the initial broadsides. And both these ships are large. These are large frigates. Even if they're fifth rates, we count them as large. So that means they have one extra light cannon, one extra heavy cannon, one carronade on their initial broadside. However, the range as Preba fired was just out of 8 inches. So that means it was 9 inches, so it was below the 10. So there was a -2 to the firing, but she couldn't use her carronades. So she was missing out on 2 carronades for this initial broadside. And the result, well, Marcus, true to fashion, because it tends to be the fact that he has a lot of bad luck in our battles. So he has rolled a measly 4 points of damage with this initial broadside. And no criticals. A really tough blow for Marcus here, because he ended up being the one firing the first broadside. I'd been firing my boat chasers, but I hadn't gotten in position to fire broadside. I should add that we are not using the normal rules from the Black Seas, where you have just 2 straight lines from the length of the ship, and that's your firing arc. For the broadside, we're using 30 degrees from the center of the ship. So you're basically using one of those turn measurement tools, the one for the smaller turn, the 30 degree, and you put it on top of the middle of the ship, and you'll see if you can hit that way. So for us, it's been turning out, it's been working really good doing that. Also, as you might see here in the battle, we're also turning the ships from the bow instead of the stern. We found we like the way it plays much better. We're turning the ships from the bow. Maybe you guys give it a go when you're playing your battle. See if you like it. It really works out well for us. Turn 6, and I have to add as well, the wind just stayed the same for the entire battle, blowing from the south to the north, and no particular things were happening. We did have a wind swell. I think it was maybe on turn 3. We had a wind swell, and that all that did was it added 1 rate of knot for all vessels. So Endymion having 7 from the start would end up with 8 inches, and Preba having 5 would end up with 6. But otherwise the winds stay the same. But in this turn, coming around with some, I mean, this was a little bit lucky ending up in the situation where I did, but so I wasn't a planned move per se, but I saw the opening and I took it and managed to maneuver onto Preba's stern with Endymion. So that was a really good rake. It was under 3 inches, and it would also be perfect as far as measurements go. So I ended up stopping in a perfect T, which means I didn't have to use the fire as you bear rule. Firing as you bear, so then you have a -2 to hit. We did, and I'm going to mention that more later, we do, when we play, we have, for now, we have removed the +1 to hit for British ships. We might add this back in later for flavor, because they were better, I mean, historically looks like they had better gunnery if you look at the sources. I've been digging a lot into sources lately, and that's for an upcoming, more ambitious video I have coming actually, that I hope is going to help a lot of you people with your own builds. But I'll get to that one when I get to that one. There's a lot of work researching. So turn 6, and Endymion, as I said, go within 3 inches of the stern of Preba and fire off broadside. And in these rules with the house rule, and I have to give again, as usual, a lot of credit. Like we've done some changes to it, but a lot of the rules come originally from Modeler Phil. He put the sheet together originally, and I also always want to do a call out. I actually had a little video chat with him a while back, and he's a really nice gent. Maybe we're going to try to do something more together. Also, maybe more upcoming on that. Okay, so devastating broadside. Since it's triple damage and it's an initial broadside, Endymion ended up hitting with all her guns and doing a whopping 57 points of damage. She also scored a critical hit, and it being below 3, she didn't need to do an additional roll like for longer ranges you'd need to do additional rolls in our house rules to actually score the crit after the initial one rolled. But Preba ended up with just 1 point left to her ship points, and I mean, smartly she struck her collets immediately. The duel was over at this point. So a short battle, yes, 6 turns. Sometimes it could be a lot of fun actually, just doing these quick battles. It was a little bit of a field test, so we were trying out Endymion's current stats, and ship that hits hard and sails fast but can't take much punishment. So with the 32 ship points she's quite fragile, but her 7 speed and bonus makes her even quicker than even a Streamlined frigate. Kind of historically correct, we hope. However, we might consider dialing her back to a 6 base speed, just for gameplay. We'll see. It didn't affect that much, but I mean, that is a very fast ship with 7 inches. So you guys decide. I'll probably release in the comments if someone would like the rules for her. She's also included. I shared earlier in an earlier video. I shared our house rules also, so that you can download those ship lists for the Battle Scribe app, and she's in there with the stats. So if you want to try it yourself, you can go ahead. So that's the dialing of the Endymion. And I also mentioned before that we had the +1 gunnery for the British removed. We are considering bringing that back in, but what we are going to, because you know it is interesting, but to balance things, what we're considering is actually raising the price of British ships, and this is a little bit inspired by B2 quarters, because in B2 quarters you have that value that shows the strength of the ship, right? And that is also affected by the ship's gunnery skill. So you don't really have that here in Black Seas, but what we can do is adjust the ship points. So we might bring the +1 again, but then also finding a good balance and raising the cost for all the British ships using that +1 rule, because I guess you could choose a British ship without that +1 rule. But if you use the +1, then there will be a cost attached to it. We'll see. We might try that later on. As ship duels, like a single ship action, this version with our house rules and the tweaks we've done, and also model field tweaks, is perfect. When we have more time, we might switch to B2 quarters. And I'm actually working on something for B2 quarters as well, which is a complete companion app, so that you can have on your cell phone, and it just takes away all the math from it. So and also the dice rolls. Maybe you would like to roll the dice yourself, then that might not be for you, but for us we just want to play with all the depth that B2 quarters gives, but maybe with a little less rolls and math. So that one will keep track of everything if I get it to work completely. I have most of the modules working now, but then I just need to get them to work together. So that's with tracking the sail damage and the gun damage and gun crew lost and everything, all the little rules we brought in as well. So hopefully I get that working and we can give a playtest, and I'll give you a walkthrough how it works, and then I can share it with you hopefully if you want to try it for yourself. But if you, even with that, I think B2 quarters just takes a little longer time to play. So if you're short on time, using our house rules or just the normal rule set or hold fast rule set from Warlords games, you can have a lot of fun with this. Not as detailed as it would be in B2 quarters with all the different gun types and so on. So you're going to just have to balance things. If you bring in a famous ship of your own, like we did now, I guess you have to playtest it a couple of times, and that's exactly what we're doing. I would like to thank Marcus, who is a good friend and also who I fence with. So if you're watching our fencing channel, a lot of the duels I do there as well is actually against Marcus. So that's pretty neat when you have friends that share, we have a common interest. Actually, you have two common interests, both historical military swordsmanship, using British manuals, actually Napoleonic era manuals, like I said in another video, the boarding action video. I would like to thank him for captaining Preba, and also, even though the wind and the dice were against him today, he always keeps a good mood. Like, he is just enjoying playing these games, and I guess his mind is like mine, and his imagination takes him to the actual battle. He tried some well-timed tactics in this battle, but I guess was overcome by actually a little bit of luck on my side. So, if you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more Napoleonic ship duels, maybe custom rule sets, historical content, more of that coming up actually, and also let us know in the comments what ship duel you would like us to try next. Until then though, clear decks and fair winds.